The grief, the whole grief, and nothing but the grief. Grief. You may think that this is an alien concept to our kind. It is, and it is not. On the one hand, we do not feel grief, but we do understand what it is, and what it engenders in other people, especially those who are empathic in nature and who have been entangled with us. We have watched with an almost childlike curiosity when you have received news about the passing away of a relative. If this happened during the golden period, you at least received some false empathy in the shape of some fabricated support and understanding to make it look as if we at least cared in some way. If your pet died during the devaluation, a long-loved pet, then we will have watched your display of sadness, longing, grief, with contempt and jealousy. We would not have supported you, but instead said something to provoke you, such as, "I don't know why you are so upset. It's just a dog." So that you focused on us again rather than wallow in your own grief. We have witnessed grief in others, observed, and learned how it is displayed. We have listened, when it served a purpose for us, during the golden period as to how it makes you feel, and stored all of this information away. We do not feel grief. We may exhibit it for the sake of appearances, if this will garner fuel for us, and to preserve the facade, but it is never felt. You, however, experience grief in an intense fashion, given your capacity to feel and to empathize. We have seen your grief over a deceased relative, a friend taken suddenly and violently in a car crash, the celebrity who you adored who has just passed away after a long battle against illness. We know just how capable you are of grief, and we know that not only does it have the potential to be a potent source of fuel, but we recognize its paralytic effect on you. Grief takes a hold and has the capacity to prevent you from functioning effectively. Not only that, its paralysis is such that it can prevent you from escaping this state of grief, keeping you locked in a grieving mode, unable to move forward. Grief is an intense emotion. We have seen this. From the wailing cries of a parent being told that their child's body has been found after they have disappeared, to the dignified grief of a war veteran stood in silence with a single tear trickling down his or her cheek as they pay tribute to their fallen comrades. Whether noise or silence accompanies this grief, it remains a powerful emotion, and naturally one that our kind is keen to draw on for the purposes of extracting the fuel. We see grief as serving two functions, keeping you in a state of paralysis, and therefore it follows that you will keep pumping out potent, negative fuel for us to extract. Now, I am not suggesting that I will embark on some kind of killing spree, slaughtering your pets, taking down your favourite celebrities and murdering your friends and family in order to create this repeated state of grief. Whilst one might see certain attractions in doing so, the effort involved, and moreover the considerable downsides to such a course of action, mean that it is not one that we would necessarily embark on. No. Instead, there is an alternative way of looking to create an enduring state of grief on your part. We want you to grieve for us. This does not involve us taking our own lives. We rarely commit such an act. We will threaten it, certainly as part of a hoover, but we regard the world as needing us, and therefore we will extremely rarely commit suicide. We will, however, cause you to grieve for us, and we do this when we eventually discard you after a harsh devaluation. When this discard takes place, we will leave you with 3 losses over which you will grieve. Your grief will be prolonged because there are 3 losses, and thus this maximizes not only the prospect of paralysis, but also a longer period for the provision of potent fuel. The first loss is the loss of who you thought we were. You were seduced and swept off your feet by this charming individual who mirrored everything you liked and disliked. We ticked all the boxes. We professed to be your soulmate. We gave you a perfect love, made every day special, and had you excited to see us and hear from us. We created such a wonderful start to the relationship, unlike anything that you had experienced before. We understood you. We cared, apparently. apparently. We showed you such passion. We listened and engaged in those things which you always wanted to share with someone else. We wrapped ourselves around you, permeated your very core, and entwined our lives so that you were never happier, and you could never comprehend a time when such delicious rapture would end. But it did, and how. The loss of something so brilliant and splendid hurts you, and feels like you have suffered a bereavement, so intense and painful is the experience. Even though you hear the words that it was an illusion, that none of it was real and that you must now let go, it is still so hard to accept all of that. And you miss us. Oh, how you miss us. You miss that wonderful person we were at the beginning, and you want that person back. No matter how many times you are told that he or she was just a creation, that it was an illusion designed to fool you, and that we never loved you and never meant or felt anything we said to you, it is still incredibly hard to accept. We have seen this. Just like someone who cannot accept that someone who has died will not walk through the door at any minute, you cannot accept for a considerable period of time that the person you thought we were has gone. We know what you will be thinking, because we have caused you to think and feel this way, and although we may not always see your grief-ridden response to our absence, we know what you will be thinking and feeling, and this fuels us. Even greater is the fuel from your messages telling us you miss us, that you want the old me back, and begging for another chance. Your grief for the loss of the person that you thought we were is both huge and prolonged. The second loss that you sustain and grieve for is the loss of the potential that we showed to you. There was no doubting that we were brilliant at our job. You saw the plaudits, and you felt the benefit for a time of the accompanying paycheck. You saw the trophies amassed for our various achievements in different fields, and you heard other people speak highly of our accomplishments. The compassion, kindness, and love that we show to you and to others, although false, still causes you to think that somewhere we are truly capable of this goodness, if only we would harness it and let it be free. You have witnessed two things: the reality of our drive to be the best and the accompanying good that such drive and ambition brings, a surgeon saving lives, a scientist inventing cures, an entrepreneur creating wealth and jobs, a policeman making the neighbourhood safer, a teacher educating so many people to a high degree. This means that our rampant desire to be the best has the considerable potential to actually do good for others. You also saw something in terms of the way that we treated you, and as an empathic individual, you still believe that this goodness can be freed and used to both our benefits so that we are both happy together. You came to regard us as a wounded and hurt person, and in conjunction with your innate desire to heal and fix, you felt that if you could heal us, then the mutual benefits would be amazing. There was so much potential waiting to be unlocked and utilized, and now with our departure and your discard, that potential has been lost. You grieve this loss of opportunity and how things might have turned out oh so different. You want to turn back the clock, do things differently, and the inability to do so causes you considerable grief and pain. The third area of grief which you sustain from coupling with us is not grieving over us, but it stems from being with us, and that is grieving the loss of your identity. Before we came along, you were happy, independent, strong, bright, well liked by your family, friends, and colleagues. You had many interests and you enjoyed life. Yes, there were flaws and vulnerabilities, but you handled them as best you could, as you forged a path through life knowing who you were. Then we came along. We subsumed you into us. We eradicated your characteristics as we either stole them for our own construct to show the world, or we eroded them through the steady application of our vicious manipulations. Your confidence evaporated, your self-esteem disappeared, and your self-worth plummeted. You became steadily isolated, losing friends, neglecting your interests, and even became distant with family. You allowed yourself to be fully consumed by us. It was entirely understandable how this happened, because we wanted it to happen, and we acted in a manner to cause it to happen. But, nevertheless, your loss of identity was a steady and insidious consequence of the grip we held over you. Now, as you sit alone, ruminating on what once was, grieving the loss of who you thought we were, the loss of the potential, you are also hit by the loss of who you were. You no longer recognize that face, which stares emptily at you in the mirror each morning. The world is grey and drab. Music sounds harsh and grating. Conversations irritate and make you fearful. Even your favourite foods taste like ash in your mouth. You have lost yourself, and the sense of foolishness from allowing this to happen, and the grief arising from such a loss is substantial. This triumvirate of grief arising from entangling with us provides us with substantial fuel, and we know that burdened by not just one or two but three forms of grief, it will take you a long time, if ever, to escape the facts.